The iHemp Hour is brought to you by Down on the Farm, hemp seed oil. Better eggs, better fries, through hemp. Get yours at downtothefarm.biz. All right, this is the iHemp Hour. My name is Dave Craybill with iHemp Michigan. iHemp Michigan's mission is to educate, inform, and promote the research, development, and cultivation of industrial hemp in Michigan. iHemp Michigan advocates for wellness in people and the planet through hemp, and it begins with the farmer. Uh, why don't we start with Mike Brennan? Do you have some news for us?
Hang on one sec. Let's start with Blaine, and then I'll come back to me on that.
That's fine. All right,
All
Blaine.
right, we'll
Oh,
just
Blaine's
kind of
got a
roll with
comment
things
here.
today then. That's fine. All right. So a little bit of news this week. The House Bill 1887, I think it is. Anyways, got introduced. I'll come up with that correct number in a minute here. So that is in the House, has been introduced. Hemp versus DEA again. This is from the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. For decades, the Drug Enforcement Administration was hemp's leading adversary. With the Farm Bill of the past, we hope the DEA justification would be out of there. Unfortunately, the DEA has stuck its nose back under the hemp tent. Last year, the U.S. Department of Agriculture issued the final rules, the interim final rules on hemp, with many burdensome and troublesome provisions that USDA Secretary Perdue recently admitted were inserted at the direction of DEA. Last month, DEA issued its own interim final rules on hemp that, among other things, could potentially criminalize the hemp extraction process. Today, with both IFRs open for public input, the U.S. Hemp Roundtable submits its formal comments. Their message: let farms farm, keep DEA out of the hemp business. You can read their full, what they submitted, their full submission, and on their website, U.S. Hemp Roundtable. They have a link there if you'd like to put your own comments in. It's pretty easy to use. It's simple. It does that. You're able to put your comments in. It goes to them. Our comment time periods for this are for the windows close on October 8th for USDA to submit your comments on that. And this is unprecedented where they've opened this back up again and let comments. And obviously they've seen there's a lot of information they want to obtain, and they want people to put comments in. So please take your time to do that. And October 20th is the time to comment on the DEA's rules. We have a real opportunity here for a lot of Michigan, Indiana, Ohio growers. The hemp mine is putting on a field day on September 30th in Litchfield, Michigan, at Rikers Roberta's greenhouse. You can go to the hemp mine website, and you can still register for that. It's really inexpensive. It's $16. So we hope to see a lot of members down there. This is where we're going to be able to walk side by side down the rows, see difference in cultivars, see difference in how they've grown, be able to answer a lot of questions. This is a great opportunity, and I hope a lot of people take advantage of this. It's right here in Michigan and not very far for a lot of us to drive and see this. Again, it's put on by the Hemp Mine. So if you go to their website, you can get information on that. There's another documentary coming out called Kiss the Ground. It's going to be broadcast on Netflix on Tuesday, September 22nd at 6 p.m. It is hosted by Woody Harrelson. The film features a star-studded lineup and cast of a glimpse of how soil might be the clear answer to sequestering carbon out of the atmosphere and help cool a warming planet. So another interesting documentary going to be out there called Kiss the Ground, Tuesday, September 22nd at 6 p.m. on Netflix. We'll be hosting on that. And that bill number was 8179. So just so I did get that bill correctly. So, and let's see what else we got going on in Michigan. Of course, everything's getting close now with harvest. I know that some people are harvesting. I've actually talked to one or two growers that have actually had some issues with their crop. It's already gone hot. So if you haven't been out there testing, make sure that you're testing your crop and get it out of the field before it does that. Remember to send in your samples. You've got to call the MDART, make sure you get onto their site, print out that form, follow the rules that they have there for you. It's pretty simple to do, but you've got to make sure you follow the rules. Otherwise, you won't get your samples in time, and you won't know what's going on with your harvest out there. We're still looking for livestock farmers that want to be part of the livestock research program. If you know anybody that's interested in that, have them contact me. I'll put my information in the chat here in just a minute, and we'll keep that list growing for those. We're getting a lot of phone calls and messages and emails regarding services that are coming up this fall. People are looking for dryers, people are looking for extractors, people are looking for harvest help. We've got a number of them that have put their information up on the iHemp website. We got that classified ad section in there. It's really inexpensive. We've made it that way purposely so that everybody could utilize that tool and be able to share information back and forth. So if you're looking for harvest help, there are a few up there that are doing that. Dave, I think you sent me a new one last night that we just got up there.
Yeah, it was a message through the website. There's a gentleman that has crew that will travel to the state and help. Blueberries and hemp, good combo.
Yep. Easy Tech is another one that's got some there. They have harvest help as well, and so if you need it, get it lined up because it's going to go pretty quickly here as things progress in the next week or so, especially with getting a little cold this week for temperatures. I'll talk about the expo a little later on. So I think that's about all I got right now. Mike, want to take it back over?
Yeah, I got a couple of event listings I want to throw out. These, of course, are virtual events. Nobody's doing, or very few are doing live these days. The Michigan Marijuana Regulatory Agency is having its quarterly meeting virtually on September 24th at 9:30 a.m. over Zoom. Zoom is making a lot of money from this virtual world. Yes. And it's to hear complaints and receive the views of the public on administration powers, detail, our duties, functions, responsibilities. In other words, a bitch session. What's working, what's not working. They want to hear it from the industry. Now, this is cannabis related, of course. And then another event that we're promoting because we're a sponsor is Abco Labs out of the Detroit area. It's having a golf outing on Sunday, September 27th, and they want to get the cannabis and hemp community together. Very inexpensive, like $60 to play, and you get lunch and dinner. Sponsorships are available. We're going to be a sponsor there. We'll have a table there so we can promote 420 Post and the Michigan Marijuana Report. But if anybody in the hemp industry wants to meet folks in the cannabis industry, obviously it's outdoors, it's golf. There'll be, distancing and masks and things because everyone's concerned about the pandemic. But I was just at an event last Saturday for the cannabis industry and everything, we're outdoors and everything seemed to go okay. So you can check all that information out at abcolabs.com. They have a sign-up mechanism there. And so hope to see you all there.
Could you put a link in the chat for us, Mike?
Yeah, I can do that, sure.
Then Blaine, you have a couple other items?
Yeah, a couple of things I wanted to mention before Dawn gets on. I know that she's going to talk a little bit about their recent elections that they had. And Dawn, boy, you sure had a great lineup of people to choose from to be on your board, that's for sure. But one of the things that came across my desk this week was the Hempcrete week. This is going to be starting Monday, September 21st. It's a virtual and you can attend it as well. And they've got Monday through Thursday. The first Monday is going to be for architects and engineers with dealing with Hempcrete and Hempcrete projects. Tuesday is going to be builders, contractors, and homeowners. Wednesday is going to be farmers, public, and press. And then on Thursday, Black Cannabis Week workshop. So this is not a free event. There's a cost for this. It's a little more money if you're in person, not so much money if you're going to do the virtual for it. So, but this just came out and sounds like pretty interesting information, and hopefully we'll be able to carry that information a little bit from that next week for everybody. So I guess that's what I have for right now. We'll turn it back over to you, Dave.
All right, fantastic. We're excited to have one of our hemp buddies. Seems like, man, Dawn, we met a couple of years ago, but it seems like much longer, like we've known each other forever. So, one of the people that was traveling the circuit, networking, making connections, and making things happen. The U.S. Hemp Building Association, Dawn Schulz, she's the executive director. And Dawn, why don't you tell us who is the U.S. Hemp Building Association and what are you guys all about?
So the U.S. Hemp Building Association is a newer organization, only a year and a half old. So our mission statement is to support and advocate for hemp building professionals, hemp building projects, and hemp building materials in the United States. So we are very focused on hemp construction. However, we do have our eye across the entire supply chain, because as we're building the industry, in order to support the hemp construction, we have to support the entire development of infrastructure to have the materials required to be able to get that to a commercial scale. One of our primary initiatives has been working with the ASTM and the ICC to set material standards and get building codes in place so that we can scale on a commercial level. We did just go through our election. The initial founding board of directors for the USHBA, their intent when they formed the organization was that they would get it off the ground, and then they would have a election of the full board by the members. Our founding board of directors has always been very members oriented, members benefit, and really wanting the members to have a lot of input and participation in the development of the organization. So that took a little longer than they initially projected. As a startup, you hit startup situations plus COVID, and that has really put a stop on many things. So we did, before COVID hit, do an election earlier this March and elect 3 board of directors just to implement part of what their initial strategy was. And at that time, we elected Cameron McIntosh from Americhambre, who is hosting the Hempcrete week that Blaine was speaking of, as well as Kim Claxton, who's our treasurer, and Allie Cloyd as the secretary. During this election, Allie stepped down because she has 2 businesses of her own, so she's going to be focusing on those. But she is uniquely positioned as one of the most experienced women hempcrete builders in the United States. So we'll still be looking forward to collaborating closely with Allie. So we did the election just recently, 7. We were a board of 13, and the membership voted to reduce that down to 9. So with Allie stepping down and Cameron and Kim staying on, we elected 7. And we had 4 of our founding board members return on that election: Bob Escher, Sergey, Eric McKee, and Henry Velez. And then additionally, Rachel Berry here from the Midwest. We all know Rachel, and Saba Tesfaye and Jacob Waddell. So that's where we ended up. And the new board had their first meeting this Tuesday. And in the first year and a half of the USHBA, I started with the organization on a volunteer basis in October of last year, helping with the certifications committee. My initial entry into the hemp industry was really highly influenced by Dion Margraf, who was one of the founding board members of the USHBA and leading the certifications committee with Sergey. And so I had worked for a corporate firm in Wisconsin that was researching hemp, and had followed General Hemp out of San Diego very closely that's really where I got the interest in hemp, really watching how they operated. General Hemp was an amazing company that was very influential in developing the entire CBD industry. Their founder was unfortunately passed in a car accident. And so the company has not really kept the same momentum, but it was during that time that they were really going strong. They were really making an impact on the industry, as well as doing good and really helping people. They helped a lot of families, and they still do have Echo, which is kind of a spin-off of that entire group, which is a charitable organization that helps families who have children who could benefit from CBD. So
there's a lot of research on that website too. Is that the Echo? Is that the one I'm thinking of that has all the research links on it?
It could potentially be. I
Okay.
mostly focused on their, initiatives to help families, but
I'll take a look. Yeah.
yeah. So I started with the certifications committee through that connection. I had met Dion at a couple of Hemp conferences out in Colorado, the NOCO conferences. So, and kept in contact. So he asked me to join that committee to help with the administration, because that's my background, is administrative, finance, and accounting, and project management, compliance. I've worked across many different industries, including investment consulting and alternative education, which with a focus on outdoor project-based education, as well as my most recent job, as I mentioned, was at the corporate farm in southern Wisconsin. We had 1,000 acres of native wildflowers and grasses, as well as a trout farm, spring trout farm with a manufacturing facility and processing, as well as 2 specialty restaurants, manufacturing facility for an erosion control product, a couple of holdings companies. And when I left the company, it was we were working on an 80,000 square foot greenhouse, state-of-the-art greenhouse facility. So we had a lot going on a farm that was purchased specifically to develop a wellness center. But the founder of that company also passed away right around the same time as the General Hemp founder passed away as well. So a lot of big losses within those couple months in the agricultural and industries of companies who really, that was really what motivated my direction of General Hemp. I was sitting at my desk in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, because we were literally in the middle of nowhere, just watching them do such amazing things out in the world that really helped people. And our company was very much felt the same way. We had a lot of purpose. Natives can really help with soil remediation and soil regeneration. And we were researching hemp as a companion planting with the natives, and working that around how you do more constructive with fish farms. There's a lot of phosphorus runoff, so we were trying to incorporate how we could do buffer zones. So we were doing a lot of environmental type of work and strategy at that company.
But
so
natives, you mean native plants?
Native plants, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay.
So back to the USHBA. That's kind of my background and where I got into the hemp industry. And so I started on the certifications committee, but I then started doing volunteer work also for the board of directors, because being a startup, that's really where my background is based in. In my first part of my career, I worked for an investment consulting firm in downtown Chicago. I've always worked for smaller, more entrepreneurial companies. So I do not have my CPA. I got my accounting degree while I was working full time. So I went to school for 10 years at night. And so I was 36 years old before I did get my accounting degree. But I started at the investment consulting firm that I worked for as a bookkeeper, administrative assistant, and left as the controller and compliance officer for their investment advisory programs. So I had some really great mentorship during that time of 2 women who came out of manager level positions, audit positions at Arthur Andersen. And a lot of our consulting firm were hired out of Kellogg University, which is one of the best business universities in the US. So I really had the benefit of some extraordinary mentorship in business and audit and startup operations. So with that background, they asked me to come and help with the USHBA, because as a startup, they were struggling with many of the same issues that a startup does start with, because it really depends on what you're doing as a startup. If you're, one person with a very defined direction, you can kind of move along without the structure in place and the internal controls and all of your a lot of strategic planning and priorities and and teamwork, but the USHBA is a national organization that wants to grow at scale. So getting that structure in place is really important. And so we got a good start on it, and then COVID hit and everybody, had their own challenges with COVID, and some of them more strongly than others. So we did the best we could, and we made a lot of progress, but it was really that, coming out of COVID and kind of getting our feet back on the ground, the board determined to have the election so that we could get their initial strategy in place. And now this new board met, like I said, on Tuesday, and that is where they're going to step, firmly back at this point, give themselves 3 weeks even to vote in the officers for president, vice president, and secretary, and really get some strategic planning in place so that we can get the whole operation on scale. We've done an enormous amount of work of strategy and planning and have so many ideas, but in order to move forward on a solid foundation so we can be effective and not hit roadblocks as we have been along the way. That's
Dawn, where do you see the U.S. hemp builders going, and what do you see them supporting to move hemp forward? Where do you see that role at?
Well, I see the role as training and education. I think everyone agrees is really what the industry needs at this point right now. But, the primary role in order for hemp construction to move forward is going to be getting the material standards and the building codes in place. So we've discussed at the USHBA hiring a project manager. We were really making the USHBA leadership with Dion and Sergey, and Ryan Dougherty was also on that committee, as well as myself, working with Ty Olson from US Heritage here in Chicago, and Darwin Millard at the ASTM. Really were able to make some really quick initial progress, much more progress on a scale than anyone really anticipated, to get it into the ASTM as a committee. And now the committee will be getting samples from across the US to be able to, and language, and working with other organizations and other people to get the standards written. So at this point, we're somewhat regrouping on that initiative because there are various organizations across the US, as well as in Canada and across the world, who have already done some of this initial work and funded some of it. So we just really need one person to come in and tackle that project, pull it all together, see what's been done, see where we're at, strategic planning, right? See where we're at, see what needs to be done, and then move forward and collaborate with all the other organizations that are working towards that.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know how technical you are on the backgrounds, but let me ask this question. If I was a home builder and I wanted to do a home project, or a builder contractor and wanted to do some building with it, are there enough codes, regulations in place that you can go ahead and do a building project and get approval for it at this point?
Yes, I mean, you have to work with your local building inspectors, but it's absolutely possible. If you're working on an agriculture or residential zoned property, it's a much more feasible situation. If you're getting into commercial, then it's going to be challenging. We have made connections of code specialists who can potentially facilitate commercial construction. But we haven't worked with any projects where I've actually seen that happen. But with agricultural and residential zoning, it's definitely something that's feasible. And we do have expertise in our association to be able to facilitate that as well and connect people up so that they can have the resources they need to work through it.
I see there's going to be an international kind of virtual hemp thing going on too in the near future. I'll try to see if I can find that information, but maybe you have some information on it, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the International Hemp Builders Association, and we do have a good relationship with them. but that, yeah, they had that planned for, you know, their annual conference, which wasn't held because of the COVID situation. So they've taken that virtual now. There was a little lag that it took them to make that happen. But yeah, it's very exciting. They have a great speaker lineup.
Now, when you say international, are there countries that are more advanced in hemp construction standards than the United States is that you're looking at?
Yeah, there's definitely hempcrete construction on a commercial level in other countries. I'm not knowledgeable enough to speak to which country is more advanced than the others, but my focus has been much more on the US market. But hempcrete construction is definitely established overseas. We have Sergey on our board from the UK, who is probably one of the most experienced hempcrete builders in the world. He does a lot of projects across the world. Actually, he also does projects here in the U.S. But so that's the whole hemp industry in general, right? It's more advanced in other countries. So how will we develop it here in the U.S.? Are we going to use their models, or are we going to replicate and innovate, or innovate and incorporate? So there's so many different people with so many different strategies, and it'll be interesting to see how it moves forward.
I see their online event was the 15th and 16th of September, so it's already passed on that, but
okay.
I'm sure they have stuff probably listed on here that people could look at.
Mm-hmm.
And this is cool. Very good.
Yes. So the USHBA, those are where we're at. We're going to step back and do some strategic planning so that we can really get a solid foundation, and then really be able to deliver our membership benefits and go forward with some of our own events. But education and training is definitely going to be outside of the ASTM and the ICC work. The education and training is really where it's at, because in order for us to scale at a commercial basis, it has to become an acceptable building material, and we have to have general contractors operating on commercial scale that are comfortable building with it, as well as job training, so that we have the workforce in place to be able to facilitate and innovation and the SIP panels. And once we get into commercial scale construction, it'll likely be panelized construction versus cast in place, which is what you'll see now. But in these smaller projects, or the aircrete spray. So as we're developing on smaller scale and working through these other educational issues, that's what I think you'll see at the USHBA is a huge focus, which, with you, like Cameron, what he put together for Hempcrete Week. I mean, that's a pretty unique package that you get there for, a pretty rounded out education of general Hempcrete 101.
A lot of information on that. It looks like we have one of our members, Doug Allen. Looks like he's been pre-approved to do some growth, to do some building with Hempcrete, it looks like. So.
Oh, hey, Doug. Yeah, Doug's very active.
When you hit the lottery, as you say there, to do that, you'll have to let us know and see how that project goes.
Dawn, one of the issues with building with Hempcrete is the curing time, right? So if the panels sound like a great idea, where you can already have insulation panels, and that would speed up the building process, wouldn't it?
Yes, I mean, curing is, and it's variable depending on where you're building. So yes, definitely panels will eliminate a lot of the variables that you'll find out in the field doing more of a cast in place type of process. But that in working with the ASTM and the ICC, each one of those building systems do require approval and process, and there is a cost in each one of them. So that's also the initiative of part of what we have to coordinate with. What's the priority is which system do you choose first, and which is most feasible, along with job training and workforce, so that you have the workforce again to facilitate the projects.
Now, you created the U.S. Hemp Building Foundation. Is that the goal of the foundation, to raise that money to pay for that certification?
Yes, so the U.S. Hemp Building Foundation was formed to do fundraising and education. But we're going to step back as well. And we also, with the founding board members, are forming an advisory council. So as part of the strategic planning that we'll be doing over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be defining really what the relationship will be between the foundation, the association, and the advisory council, so that we have some good foundation and to build on and to communicate within, so that we're not everybody's not doing the same thing and doing double work, and that we can really make the best use of everybody's time and really be effective and productive with that strategy.
Do you have anybody from Michigan on the advisory council or the board?
And the advisory council will be made up with the founding members that are moving off of the board of directors, and there is no one from Michigan. The advisory council, I'm sure, will grow as that structure is implemented. So because that's the nature of an advisory council. So once the advisory council is initially founded, I'm sure we'll be reaching out to other people in the industry to join that. As far as the board of directors, we do not have anybody from Michigan, but Rachel Berry is from well, I was just going to say Chicago, Illinois, but she's from Central Illinois, but does a lot of work throughout the Midwest and Michigan. I think she's very well known: Michigan, Indiana, Wisconsin, Illinois. So
yeah, Rachel did seminar last year on building with or making Hempcrete bricks is what she did at the expo. Yeah.
That little tiny house. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she has a great training program, and any place I've ever been where Rachel's presenting, she has a big crowd at her and she has her own association as well that she's grown to 200 members. So that's a huge accomplishment, and she's very well respected throughout the entire Midwestern and very influential in the hemp industry. So really, really excited to have her on the board.
So Don, what do you see that hemp growers and hemp businesses and stuff can do to keep moving this process forward using hemp in the building material? We know, and hopefully in a couple of weeks we'll have the down Murray in Kentucky. They're making the flooring down there. We're going to have them on the show.
Mm-hmm.
But what can we do as growers or as hemp enthusiasts to help keep this project moving forward? What do you see?
So yeah, I've recently listened to Morris Beagle on a podcast he was doing, talking about the hemp industry potentially not even being referred to as a hemp industry going forward, because it's going to be more of a material that we're implementing in different manufacturing processes across the U.S. And I do a lot of work also with Bruce Dietzen, who's very knowledgeable on the entire renewables aspect of it and carbon drawdown and carbon, becoming a carbon neutral society. So I guess, it's the, what's the vision? My background again is more business oriented. So when you're talking about future and what we can do going forward, I kind of step back to, history and what's the vision and what's the strategy and how are we going to move that forward? And so Bruce and Dan Hare just released the 14th edition of The Emperor Wears No Clothes. And so, Jack Hare is definitely the founding influence of this industry. And so I refer back to a lot of that. And it's really interesting. In 1989, he worked with, he went to the head of the Department of Agriculture of the U.S. with a plan to utilize hemp for carbon drawdown and climate change initiatives. And of course, hemp wasn't legal back then, but if you get the book and read it, it's absolutely fascinating to understand that the hemp industry has really, 31 years later, progressed not much with all of that information and all of that history and all of that knowledge, except for legalization, of course, which is an incredible step. And So going forward, I guess if you really want to refer back to the vision of the people who really founded it and really were involved in the vision and the legalization, which was based on that vision, I guess, you know, as we develop the industry, we really are at a crossroads. Are we, you know, we can overlay our current agricultural systems and business models and financial models on to hemp and come out on the other side potentially with much of what we're looking at today, which for those of us who have children who are looking at their future right now is not the way, you know, and it's not in accordance or alignment with the vision that was meant for the hemp or cannabis industry, which are basically founded at a grassroots activist level on justice, human rights, and freedom, right? You know, social justice, economic, environmental, youth justice. So if we're really looking at hemp, you know, as a material that can facilitate environmental remediation and regeneration in conjunction with economic development, and use those promises and principles to build our industry on, then I think we'll be able to move forward in a much more according to that vision and come out with a different world. And that's, you know, that's the premise of that book. I don't know if hemp can save the world, but it's the only thing that can, but only if we implement it on those principles. So, you know, implementing on those principles, I think will take collaboration. It's, like I said, my background is business. When I was at the corporate farm, we had 7 different entities under one corporate umbrella, and it's just somewhat of a good example of, especially in the cannabis and hemp industry, that's a pretty common structure for any developing organizations. They do have multiple entities, including, you know, potentially a holding company and an operating company, and then you'll see dispensaries have their own entities, and the growing part of the facilities or structure of the corporate entity. So, you know, in order to be able to even just do one organization with those multiple entities, you really have to have some great leadership at the top with purpose and, you know, branding and purpose all throughout the structure of the organization, so that everybody's moving in the same direction and really accomplishing the mission. And you can overlay that right onto an entire industry, I think. So it's like you saw in the CBD industry last year, 2019, you know, you had farmers doing a great job at growing hemp, you had processors, you know, there wasn't any collaboration or coordination across the supply chain. So even though farmers could be successful and processors could be successful and the market, you know, none of it was collaborated in the same, there wasn't any like strategy or you know, farmers grew without knowing, with processors who said that they were going to have their operations up, but weren't able to get their operations up. Even if you were fully integrated, you were expecting a market that didn't end up materializing. So I guess that, you know, I think in order for us to get to a hemp industry longer term, it's going to take, you know, growing at mass scale. It's going to take collaboration at mass scale as well. And that doesn't mean that we all have to give away our secret sauce of our business models, but if we don't have some collaboration and, you know, identify our markets and then work back from there about how we develop our processing and what we grow, and potentially develop these into micro models in regional areas, so that we're really taking advantage of the infrastructure that we have in local areas already. Like, for example, if you're in the grain belt and you have grain infrastructure, you know, potentially grain is the better hemp path for you. If you're in the Southeastern, where they have tobacco infrastructure and textiles infrastructure, then potentially that's the better path for the Southeastern part of the country. So, you know, it's really that strategy and that collaboration and really looking at what you have, where you're at, and and working with your resources and, you know, education, education, education.
Yeah.
So,
looking
what
like-
do you see, not to, I'm sorry, Dave. So what do you see as how we should build here in Michigan and the Great Lakes area? What is the natural, you know, infrastructure that we should partner with or build with?
Yeah, well, that's where I'm from. I'm here in Chicago, and I grew up in a farming community in Wisconsin. So, and that's where the corporate farm I worked on. I moved to Ann Arbor for a year after leaving that company for the exact reason that Michigan just seems like such a great, great basis, because you know how to grow cannabis, and hemp is cannabis. And, you know, in some regions of the country where cannabis is not quite as, the culture isn't as conducive to cannabis as Michigan is, you don't see that kind of collaboration. But, you know, it's even just the collaboration between the hemp and the cannabis industries, I think, is something that I've seen a little bit of movement on. But it's difficult to be a farmer in a state that is not cannabis oriented and watch them, you know, refuse to work with anybody who's ever worked in the cannabis industry, because it's just not in their comfort zone. And then, you know, when you get into the cannabis industry, I see people not be willing to work with people who are commercial farmers, because commercial farmers really do have a skill and to bring to the industry. So I guess, you know, across the Midwest, it'll still be regional as well. You know, in Michigan, it's going to be difficult because it's so cannabis oriented and cross-pollination issues. So growing at scale outside in Michigan and what that's going to look like is going to be very different, I think, than Wisconsin. And Michigan is just a different agricultural environment anyway. There's so much diversity in Michigan. If you get back into Wisconsin, it's, you know, corn and soy every inch of farmland. So Wisconsin is historically was a leading fiber state. So I would see fiber to be, I would project that that's what's going to be the leader in the Wisconsin area. So even just in those two states alone, you can see you're going to need different varieties, different processing. They'll be meeting different markets. But here you have Chicago right in the middle, right? So we're really positioned, I think, here in the Midwest, and you see a lot of collaboration already here in the Midwest between associations with the Midwest Hemp Council and iHemp and the, you know, Rachel's Illinois Hemp Growers.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of associations out of the Wisconsin. Well, yeah, there is a Midwest Hemp Farmers and Manufacturers in Wisconsin and in Minnesota. So, but everybody works together and everybody talks to each other and collaborates. So it's really a nice thing to see. Plus, you also have the Midwest Hemp Database, which is an amazing collaboration between 4 universities here in the Midwest with Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, and where's my last one? Indiana, sorry, yeah. Purdue, out of Indiana. So
Okay.
Marguerite Bolt. So, you know, that alone is such an amazing and incredible and impressive accomplishment that they've been able to make with that research. That it's primarily CBD oriented because that's where the market is, but they're definitely adding in the fiber research as well. And, you know, these universities, Shelby Ellison out of the University of Wisconsin-Madison is one of the 4. And I've talked to her pretty extensively in research in Wisconsin. And, you know, she's out on all of these farms, and really, you know, these universities have some huge influence on what our agricultural models could potentially look like. So, you know, they're always open to doing research for different types of agricultural models. And, you know, you also have the huge benefit of Christie in Michigan. Your lead agronomist, Christie Apple, right? So Christie is an incredible person to talk to about agronomy and how we get from our conventional agricultural models from where we're at now to how do we move towards what we're talking about in that vision of the hemp industry and potentially cannabis too, although you I'm sure that'll remain indoors in the Midwest for sure. But
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
there's-
if you want to incorporate regenerative agriculture and we really want to regenerate our soil and remediate our soil, it's going to really require different agricultural practices and companion planting and, you know, reduction of the chemicals that we're using and the runoff that's creating into our waterways. So, you know, integrating more environmental practices in the agricultural models and stepping that in. I mean, Christy's like brilliant in those capacities.
She
There's
geeks.
no doubt that the Corona thing has set everybody back, including the networking, because there's so much you can do on the Zoom, right? But
Right.
so much of everything that moves forward has been really these face-to-face contacts and being able to talk
Yeah.
to somebody and being able to move forward. So, you know, we hope
Yeah,
that
Christy, yeah, she's a little bit of an exception to that. She does a lot of live Facebook feeds that are really, really beneficial to anybody who wants to watch them. I mean, she's all over the state of Michigan and, you know, throughout the Midwest. I've seen her out of the state of Michigan too. She works, I think,
And
even
she
out in the
gets out
Hudson Valley.
she gets out in the fields and does live
Yes.
stuff from the field. I've seen a couple of those.
Right, right. Yeah, so I think the Midwest is really, you know, it's the USHBA is a national organization, and we do have regional. We have a regional leaders program that we're developing right now, and that'll be part of the strategy that we're building at the U.S. Hemp Building Association. Is that if you want to really move that, you know, that's what we say sometimes in the hemp industry, right? It'll take an army to turn this into an industry, and that's going to really require people in their local areas doing the work and developing the infrastructure. But, you know, in order to support them to do that, we really want to make sure that they're connected into, you know, credible organizations with integrity, and that they have the education and the, you know, the ability to really find the people that they need through professional connections and what we'll have set up on our website eventually, so that they can grow it in accordance with that vision that I was talking about, so that we're not just, you know, overlaying, and that people aren't out there trying to figure it out for themselves. And, you know, it'll take longer that way if we're just letting people, you know, try to do it without direction and mentorship.
I think Clyde is asking a question. Clyde says, "Are you doing any work with the folks in Western Canada, with the U.S. Hemp Builders? Just Biofiber, Clyde? Is that the name of the company, or maybe you can respond to that? But
Just Biofiber. Yeah, they're definitely in our network. Dion Lafarve is one of the reps for that company, and he's done some really great hemp construction projects up in that area of Canada. So yeah, I mean, we are the USHBA, but we definitely do have members in Canada and are collaborating with.
does Canada have
companies like
a similar organization like U.S. Hemp Builders? Do they have their own?
I'm not familiar with it if they do have but they do. Canada definitely does have initiatives and organizations that are working on the building codes and the material standards. I don't know if they're necessarily hemp associations. I don't think so. I think they're more related to just regulatory.
Cannabis, okay. Well, Don, we want to thank you for being on today and taking some time and informing us that. Again, a great job on the election process. I know you got a lot of great people that were on that slate of candidates, that's for sure. So
Definitely.
and we're going to look forward to working with you and your organization for the upcoming expo to be able to put together a great program for people on the building industry and what's going to happen there. So
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right.
Thanks for joining.
Dave, you want to mention the sponsor of our show?
Yeah, I want to shout out to Total Health Companies, Casey Yosin from Total Health Companies. We're going to have a promo video from him. I'll plug into the recording of this show. So I believe that is our current sponsor. Is Down on the Farm the sponsors?
Nope, down on the farm. We'll be coming again as soon as we get the machine.
We need to get more oil. Some of that.
Well, it's coming.
Mhm.
Coming. It's been a
Right.
slower process than I wanted to. My Hempty Huller is sitting in Miami right now, so at least it's out of China. That's all I can tell you. So
Progress. Okay, it's getting closer.
progress is getting there. So, Mike, you want to mention the golf outing again? Anything else you want to wrap up with?
Yeah, sure. That's the date is Sunday. I'm looking at the calendar. Sunday, the 27th. AbcoLabs.com. Abco, I'm not shilling for them or anything, but they also they'll work with hemp farmers. They're more, like whether you have heavy metals and what kind of water you have and things like that. They don't actually, test your THC content. Obviously, the state does that. But the golf outing is on the 27th. It's in Whitmore Lake. They've mentioned to me, they know I do this show with you guys, so they said they'd love to have some folks from the hemp industry join them, and we'll be there as a sponsor, and it'll be a great outing. And like I said, I was at Rudy Petros is from Securitech, does a lot of security for the hemp industry, or for the cannabis industry. And I was at his outing on Saturday outdoors, and I've forgotten how much I enjoy being around people. You do this virtual thing so much you forget, right?
Yeah.
And it worked out okay. I don't think I got anything from anybody, but and they'll be taking security precautions at the golf outing. A lot of the sponsor tables will be outdoors, weather permitting, and the masks and social distancing as best you can. Pretty tough when you're sharing a cart with somebody, so make sure you share a cart with somebody you know really well. But there's a lot of opportunities at $60 to play, and you get lunch and dinner, and mostly you get as Blaine mentioned, you can only go so far on a virtual event on really getting to know people. You have to actually got to meet them face to face. So this is an opportunity before the weather turns real nasty. It's coming fast, I tell you. Getting up in the morning, it's 45 degrees, so that tells me fall is just around the corner, right? So,
well, they're talking frost freeze warning this week here. So,
the trees are starting. I'm in Ann Arbor, and the trees are already starting to change here. So, but anyway, that's it. Yeah. So anyway, abcolabs.com. Check it out. Sponsors, or if you want to get a foursome together or whatever. But it'd be a great opportunity to meet a lot of people, and who knows, do some business, right?
Okay.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Mike. Excuse me. They do an industrial hemp virtual field day that I want to mention. The Division of Extension, University of Wisconsin-Madison, is hosting an industrial hemp virtual field day on September 18th, so that's tomorrow, from 11 to 1 p.m., which I'm assuming is going to be 12 to 2 our time. The field day will provide an update on current University of Wisconsin-Madison and the Division of Extension industrial hemp research with essential oil, seeds, and fiber production. An update on research projects occurring in the Midwest is also planned, and they've got a list of speakers. And again, this would be a free event. It's no cost to participate. Registration is available at go.wisc.edu/60OIC1. We'll get that up on there, but you can also contact the Chippewa County Extension Office at 715-726-7955. And again, I want to mention the hemp mine. Maybe Dave probably can't bring it up, but I'll bring this up here. That's their. You'll see this if you get any of the daily or weekly news, hemp news emails that are out there. I see they're adding all of those coming in there. So again, that's going to be in Litchfield on September 30th. What a great day again to get out, meet people, and be able to see these plants being grown side by side, so you can compare what you might like or not like and get questions on maybe what's happened this year with your crop as well. The Midwest iHemp Expo is a go. We're definitely going to do this. More and more as this kind of progresses closer, it looks like we're going to have to go virtual. Right now, even in Lansing, they've got lockdowns on some of the student housing there, even over where I live and in Ottawa County, the Grand Valley University has had lockdowns. So I just don't see this going away, but either way, it's going to be a great event. We have a great lineup of speakers right now that are presenting themselves. And if you know anybody that'd like to be a speaker or like to talk or present something at the show, or certainly be a sponsor, let us know. The theme is a sustainable world. So that's the theme of this year's expo going to be.
Blaine, if you're going to go virtual, I assume that if these videos are going to be recorded so people can watch them after the event. Is that right?
Correct. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And they'll be right now, the way it's planned, you probably wouldn't be able to see every speaker at every time. So we'll definitely have those recorded so that you can do that. So absolutely. Mm-hmm. And the Midwest Hemp Council, they're still planning their Hemp Expo in February, the 4th and 5th. That's a Thursday and Friday near the Indianapolis area. I think they've come out the hotel. We'll make sure we get that listed up there. So
Yep. Hemp at the Crossroads.
Hemp at the Crossroads. Yep. So that'll definitely come in there. So that's what we got there. So all right, next week we've got a great show lined up. I'm really excited. We're going to have Chase Hubbard. Is going to be coming on. He's with the Jacobsons, and he does a hemp report on the market situation. He was at our expo last year, and he's going to be helping us plan the events for this year too. So we're really looking forward to that, and we thank him for that. So he's going to be on talking about the hemp markets, which is important to all of us, obviously, where we move forward. And then Jeff Cole, who's also was at the expo last year, US Hemp Brokerage. He's going to come on again and talk about local market trends and what you can do this year to be able to market your crop and be able to do that. So great show on marketing we'll have for next week. So, but now it's that time of the show.
The highlight of the show, I might add. So,
So next week, we're going to have a recipe from one of our members, Nancy. She sent in one on a sourdough bread that we're going to be making, and we have that on next week's show. So that's just a teaser. But for this week, we have protein pumpkin pie pancakes.
say that fast three times. Huh?
Right? Protein pumpkin pie pancakes. It's that time of season, right? All the pumpkins out there. So it's a fall favorite recipe. I got this one from, where did I get this from this week? It's on here. Well, I'll have to put that into the show, Dave. I don't remember where I borrowed
Put it
this.
in the notes.
Yep, but it's fine. So it's a real easy recipe. I like things that are easy. This particular recipe will make 5 servings. You need 4 large eggs, 3 cup egg whites, 3/4 cup egg whites, 15-ounce can of pumpkin. They say 1 cup almond meal here, but I would substitute that with the hemp protein or hemp flour. And you can find that in some of the stores. I know Bob's Red Mill carries it. And I know that down on the farm will also be carrying that very soon as well. A teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, a dash of nutmeg, a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and cooking spray. Then you make these just like pancakes, and they're very yummy and they're very good. So protein pumpkin pie pancakes.
Ooh,
today's
pumpkin pie is one of my favorites too.
Yeah, you bet.
And it's the season. So anything else for the last before we wind up, guys?
No, I
Okay.
think we're good.
All right.
Thanks
Well,
again, Dawn.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
And
Don.
we'll see everybody next week.
Make it
All
a good
right,
All right, have a good one.
you too.